Technology is not our friend. It used to be just copiers were like that. You know, the
Let
more
me know when you're
important as
ready,
one it
Gary.
was for you to make a copy, then the more likely the copier was going to jam or something.
Right. Let me know when you're ready, and I'll give you a quick intro, Gary.
Sure. We can go ahead and get kicked off if you want.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us today at ScaleupStream. This event here is Concept or Idea into a Business. And running the event today is Gary Jinks, founder of GLJ Group and also the founder of South Valley Angels. Gary has 25 years of corporate R&D and systems engineering, business development, combat vehicles. He's worked with EVs, robotics, IoT, concept to production. Gary has also captured over 350 million for clients. And as I mentioned, he's the founder of South Valley Angels and led 4.5 million in funding. And then ScaleupStream, which our MVP launched March 1st of 2021. Also, Gary has 12 years working with and building Silicon Valley incubators, built first corporate innovation center in Saudi Arabia, and has worked directly with well over 1,000 startups. Gary, super excited to have you on today. You can take the stage.
All right, thanks a lot. Yeah, so as you can see, innovation's pretty much all I've done. As soon as I got out of the Army, I got hired by a defense contractor virtually the very next day. I didn't even get any time off between Army and civilian life. So anyway, that's what I've done my whole career. With that said, let's go ahead and get started then. So let's start off with some fundamentals here before we get too deep into it. So many of you, if you've been Googling and doing startups for a while, have probably seen this or something similar to this or so forth. But this is the life cycle of a startup. It's got a variety of things, whether phase one is friends and family or idea creation or bootstrapping or whatever you want to call it. This process is the fundamental process for going through the startup world. But what I like to do is kind of break it into some simple things. Well, let's call it first stage preparation, which on my assumption is that's where pretty much most of you, if not all of you, are at right now. You're preparing to get ready for your first formal angel funding. Then once that happens, then the next level of that is you're going to go and you're going to validate your idea. So you'll get your angel funding, you'll validate your idea. This window here is probably 18 months, 12 to 2 years. The more perfect world to be 12 to 18 months. Then once you validate you have the right product, the right price, you go ahead and move on to that. And then after that, we have execution. So regardless of whether it's seed or early stage or whatever, pre-seed, all these various names, try to think of your business in a term of preparation, validation, and execution. Now, to get out of this phase that we're doing today, you need to be able to demonstrate that you understand the opportunity, you have a plan, you know what it's going to cost. You can communicate it intelligently so somebody gets compelled to either fund you or join your team, and you have an MVP or prototype. That's what's required to get out of it or to make funding like. In the validation phase, you're just trying to prove you have the right product, right price, and you're going to do some scaling. After that, you're simply going to scale and generate revenue. And that's the process. This process is going to happen no matter what the case is. This is just the life cycle. Okay. So today, we have a big shift in the way that startups and entrepreneurs are sort of designed, let's say. So the early startups that we are all famous with, they were started by visionary entrepreneurs. They were always those crazy people in the Silicon Valley, the Steve Jobs, these kind of folks that were running around the valley. That has changed a little bit. Today, entrepreneur is actually a career path. People strive to be an entrepreneur. In the early days, you were kind of born an entrepreneur. You were born with that mindset and that desire. Today, the word entrepreneur has replaced, I want to start my own business. So now entrepreneur is a career path. It's not necessarily just visionary people. It's gone mainstream now. So one of the problems we have today, though, is that today's entrepreneurs don't start from a vision. Most of today's entrepreneurs aren't the classic visionary entrepreneurs. They start from a problem, because if you Google the internet, it tells you if you're going to get raise funding, you have to be solving a problem. And that's a true statement. But I believe that solving the problem is a basic foundation that came out of classic 1990 sales, where you had to be solving their pain. What is your pain? How can I solve your pain? What can I sell you to fix that? Well, now everybody is solving a problem. But that creates an issue. And we're going to talk about concepting your idea. So there's a variety of ways to do this. Here are some primary methods for concepting idea. If you do it according to the book, as they would say, you will go out and you'll sit down with a lean canvas. You'll break that down. You'll go out, you'll interview customers, find the common problem they have. Then you'll come back and you'll solve that problem. And then you might apply a product market fit analysis to determine all the good details on it. All these things are important. However, I believe that to a certain degree, they don't necessarily dial in what needs to be done. So we're going to talk about a little different approach today. We're going to start talking about a vision. What is the vision? How do you see the future? Why are you relevant 18 months to 2 years? What is the real opportunity? Not, oh, it's a big market, but what is the real opportunity at hand? What are the real problems that need to be solved? Not the tactical problems that you're solving for your customer, but as you're talking to an investor and you're looking at your business, what are the real problems that need to be solved for you to be successful? And that successful is capturing the opportunity. And then a little bit of what's going on in the competition. So these are the 4 areas we're going to cover today, or potentially pages or topics within your pitch deck, let's call it. Okay. So this is a top-down approach to drive a bottoms-up solution. And we'll talk about that as we go along. So let's start with vision. Now, I remember when I was in the corporate world and we'd go to all the management training and they'd talk about vision and so forth. And I used to sort of say, yeah, whatever. We build combat vehicles and we build this and we're just going to build the next greatest one. But as a startup, you don't have that history, that background. So in many cases, your vision is to a large degree what you're bringing to the table. So let me ask this. Who wants to give me their vision statement? I heard somebody breathing. Go ahead. Who wants? Give me a vision statement. Right, wrong. Even if it's wrong, we can fix it while we're sitting here. So nobody has a vision statement. Okay, there's the #1 problem. That's why you're not getting funded. You have no clue what the vision future looks like. I'm going to ask the question one more time. Does anybody have a vision statement? Okay. Well, I'm glad everybody's in this class today. Okay. So let's talk about your vision statement, because tomorrow we're going to have a class called How to Talk Like a CEO, and CEOs only bring 2 things to the table. One of those is a vision.
I have a vision.
Oh, go ahead. Who's got a vision? Go ahead. Who's that?
It's Emily.
Emily, go ahead. Give me your vision statement.
Okay. It's kind of long. It's to be the global premier provider of instant access to wellness information to loved ones, guardians, caregivers for residential, short and long-term healthcare facilities, government agencies, healthcare providers, insurance companies operating under HIPAA.
Okay, that's good. I got that. Okay.
It's long. It's long.
It is long, but it's also not a vision statement. It's more of a mission statement or a goal and an objective. Fair enough?
I thought
that doesn't give me a sense of where the future is going that makes you relevant.
If I say global premier provider, I thought that would be the vision.
Okay, let's do this. Since you're on, let's do this. Let's change that sentence a little bit.
Okay.
You're selling the future, right? Because we're investing in the future. If your product's ready today, I'd suggest getting a business loan and just launch your product.
Okay.
But we're building it and going to launch the future. So think about your vision like this.
Mm-hmm.
We believe the future of wellness, or we see a future where. Now finish that statement of how you see the future.
We see a future of wellness where no matter where you are, you have instant access to.
Okay, let's forget about the where you are. So you see the future of healthcare will be instant access to your information
Yeah,
need it or something like that, right?
yes.
Okay, good enough. We can use that as an example. So everyone's out there, think about this in the future, because tomorrow, if you come to tomorrow's class and learn how to talk like a CEO, you're going to learn that CEOs come with two things. They bring two things to the table. One is a vision. If you don't bring the vision, who is? You will have a company with no direction. And the second thing CEOs bring to the table is money. You're always raising money, whether that's from investors, shareholders, improving your stocks, whatever the case is. Those are the two things. So if you don't have a vision, you're only half the CEO. So think about that a little bit. And that is one of the things that happens when we come in. And we ask that question, and a CEO has no clue of what the future looks like. Why is that important? Because 42% of all startups fail because of timing. And without a vision, you can't possibly understand the timing because you don't understand what's going on in your market space or where that pathway is going. But we'll get into that in a little more detail. Okay, so you have a vision. Okay, here's some thoughts on that. The vision, your vision is how you see is the driving force behind your opportunity. Everything you're doing you should be doing because you see a vision of the future where what you're doing is going to be critical and highly profitable, or if not, have a large impact or something. Okay. So some examples. Simple. The future of the automobile will be electric. We can agree or disagree on that. The future of agriculture will grow local, consume local. AI will replace humans in business analytics and process workflow. So those are just examples of simple vision statements. Now, if we start off with the future of the automobile electric, and the person I'm pitching to says, well, I think it's actually going to go hydrogen instead. Well, then the rest of our pitch deck is probably irrelevant because we don't even see the future the same way. They may think that electric vehicles are purely a bridge to hydrogen vehicles. Who knows? Anyway, this is where it is because your vision drives how you see things. So if we're doing this by the book and you're a brand new entrepreneur, then we're trying to find out what's the right product for your vision. I have a vision and here's what needs to be there. However, most of you already have a product. You've already started building it, or you have it, or it's an MVP. So the reality is if you don't have a vision, how does your product fit in your vision? So you need to come up and figure out how does the future look to see if you're relevant. I worked with a startup years ago, and in the process of them wrapping up their version 2 of their MVP, their product feature came out on every Android phone. And they were dead in the water. Because they simply put their head down and were solving a problem, not looking at what was going on. Any questions on that? So your vision's important. It's more important because it's driving everything you're doing or should be. Now, what do investors invest in? A lot of people like to say investors invest in teams, but they don't. They invest in opportunities, hopefully good opportunities. They're going to make them lots of money and have an impact on the world. All that's good stuff. And an opportunity is a combination of vision and planning. I see a future, I see a vision, and I have a plan to get there and do something with that. Market size, your TAM, your SAM, your SOM, those are not opportunities. A lot of times if I ask people, startups, tell me about your opportunity. Oh, it's a $54 billion industry. Okay, that in itself is not an opportunity. If that $54 billion industry happens to be in biotech and you've never taken a class in biotech in your life, that's probably not an opportunity for you. Could be an opportunity somewhere. So those are not opportunities. So let's think in terms of 3 levels of an opportunity. First, level 1, what is the market you're in? Using our examples before, the electric vehicle, that would put us in the electric vehicle market. Grow local, consume local agriculture model, that puts us in the agriculture market. So you could say that market is growing because of what reasons? Why is the industry, the market that you're in, why is that in itself a good market to be in? So you want to be able to define that in your mind. Next, what's going on in the market to support your vision? Why is your vision valid? Why do you think the market's headed that way? And last, what are your market segments? What customers are you going after? So these 3 things together can define the opportunity. Any questions on that? We're going to go into it more deeper in just a second. Okay. So here's the 3 levels of your opportunity. Now, don't think of this right now as a slide deck, or a pitch or a slide in your pitch deck. It could be I believe as an investor, every pitch deck should have something called opportunity, not market size. You see, opportunity. Because in one slide, you should be able to capture what that opportunity is and compel me as an investor to want to listen more. So let's start with this. So your sandbox, let's say you're in whatever market you're in, you have a TAM or a target market number that you like throwing around for that market size. So you're in the $200 billion whatever market. Now we have defined our sandbox. Now, again, validate that sandbox. Why is the electric vehicle market a good market to be in? Why is, pick your area, why is that a good market? Well, the electric vehicle market's obvious. It's only 2% of the car sales, and it's coming, and its regulation is driving it. There's a gazillion stats. We could easily show why the electric vehicle market's going to grow massively. Now, once you've identified that your sandbox is a valid sandbox to be in, now let's validate your vision. Why is the electric vehicle going to be the future? Well, there's all sorts of things that come into that. So when you're thinking about your own product, think about it in terms of trends. Are there trends coming? Technology, IoT, AI, self-driving cars, robotics. These are trends in technology that are coming that may drive why people are doing it. The biggest question you're answering on this page in opportunity is why now? Again, like we said, 42% of startups fail because of timing, not because they ran out of money. Ultimately, everybody runs out of money, but it's because of timing. Now, there's other things with it that may drive your vision, changing dynamics. Maybe the people or your consumers or your customers that are coming up today are different than the customers in the past. And therefore, the things that previous customers may not have done or transitioned to, they will now because they were born with it or whatever the case is. So this is validating that the way you see the future is valid. Next, after that, let's take a look at defining and validating your vertical markets. So if I was to go through this, and one last thing here on this page is you must be able to go from your vision to your market segments in a logical manner. Again, this page, all you want to do is load this page up with statistics and numbers and metrics within these spaces, and then pick the 3 or 4 that drive home clearly why there's an opportunity here. Anybody have any questions on this? Okay, so here's what we mean from going by a vision. So let's just use electric vehicles since it's simple. So we believe the future of the automobile is going to be the electric vehicles. That puts us in the gazillion trillion dollar vehicle market. That market is growing massively. It's currently only 2% of the auto share. It's got a 98% growth just to catch up the vehicles that are currently on the road today. Regulations around the world and all these things are going on that validate why we believe it's going to go electric. And that puts us in 2 market segments. One, batteries and charging stations, because every electric vehicle has to have them. So now that sounds a lot better than my TAM is 200 billion, my SAM is 100 billion, and my SOM is 50 billion. Now you can give us insight. You can provide information that lets us know that you understand what the market's doing, what's happening around you, and what market segments you're going after. Any questions on that? Okay, pretty quiet group today. So now, if we all agree that the future of the automobile is electric, we all agree that the market's exploding and all this looks good, and we all agree that batteries and charging stations are a great place to be in this market segment. Now the question is, we have now a product to build. Now you notice I took this chart from the beginning. And the reason I did that is because I think these tools have their place. I believe, in my opinion, my humble opinion, that you can do a quicker method. Again, in the startup world, it's all about speed to market. That's critical. So the question is, how can I get there as fast as possible? I can spend years trying to understand things. I can go through, and many startups, that first phase of preparation is in fact, many cases, many years. They've been thinking about this. You've been thinking about this idea for a while. You're finally doing something with it. You're finally starting to build something. You've talked to some people, and now you've gotten through that process. So starting by understanding where the trends are going with a vision and understanding what that future is looking like, if you kind of run through that exercise first and then come to this, then this isn't being used to concept your idea. This is being used to design your product. This is being used to define the product. So I think you can spend a lot of time going through this process, and it's good. But I kind of think that for speed to market, understanding where the future is going and just getting yourself in the right box, and then going out talking to the customers can help quite a bit. Again, you're going to more than likely have already started building your product. So hopefully you're doing this in parallel, or hopefully you've at least talked to enough people before you started building your product to not purely be building what you think they want. Unfortunately, that happens more often than not. Okay, so let's move on this. So we've identified our opportunity. We know where the opportunity is. Now we're going to start defining the product necessary for that opportunity. So that now gets us into the problem. Anybody have any questions or thoughts before I start this? Okay, so now at this point, we've identified an opportunity. We've decided the opportunity is exactly what you're doing. Okay, so now let's think about the problem. And this is another area a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with, because again, they didn't look at what the big picture is. They simply put their head down to focus on solving a problem. So there's three problems we're going to think about today. Strategic problem, and that is the single problem you have to ultimately capture to solve the opportunity. So let's look at my example of electric vehicle. So if I sit down and say we're going after batteries and charging stations. So if I'm talking about batteries now, since my startup is building two products, in the battery world, I fundamentally, in today's standard, I have to build a better battery. Cheaper doesn't get me there. Lighter doesn't get me there. It has to have the power density, the range, and so forth and so on. Cheaper and lighter will come later. But right now, you purely have to have a better battery if you want to win this market. In the area of a charging station, I do not have to have the best charging station if I can put it on every corner and make it available to everyone. Okay, so there's two different strategic problems that I could choose to solve to get into the marketplace. So the strategic problem is simple. It's obvious that if you solve that problem, you can capture the opportunity. Next are the tactical problems, or what we call today's problems. This is where most entrepreneurs spend 99% of their time to solving today's problems. You continually tell us how today's problems don't get there. Today's solutions are fragmented. If you're in security people like to say that today's security solutions suck. They don't do anything. But the reality, today's problems do work. They're today's problems. They're available today. Millions of people are using them and they're happy. Are they as good as the product you're coming up with? No, your product needs to, by default, be 10 times better than what's out there today. Okay. Now, if you're building a product with AI in it, you're probably going to be 10 times better than today's basic problems, which in many business solutions could be as simple as an Excel spreadsheet, which is still the #1 software used in business today, 25 years later, or 30 years, or however many long that thing's been out. Okay. Now, another problem with spending a lot of time on the tactical problems or your customers' problems or so forth and so on is that the more you talk about that, you sound like every company that's walked into office, because you're all solving those problems. Those are the inherent problems today you want to be solving. If you want to talk about solving today's problems, just say we solve all of today's problems for 10 times better than what's out there. We incorporate AI to capture all the things that today's problems can't do. Done. That gets us somewhere. Okay, now, so that's current state. The next set of problems are tomorrow's problem. But after the strategic problem, that's the most important problems you have to solve. Because in 18 months or 2 years from now, when you walk out the front door of your office with your product that's now the validated right product, right price, and you walk out on the sidewalk, and all the companies that are doing exactly what you're doing right now in rooms like this that you don't know about or have never heard of, when you all walk out of the office, who's solving the right problems? And these are things like right now, there's so much technology coming. I would argue that we're in the same position today as we were in the early 1990, let's say, with the computer. We were all starting to put computers in our house. We were all starting to put PCs into our businesses, and they were starting to show up, and computers were coming everywhere. We didn't know everything about them, but we knew they were coming, and there was no stopping it. And it was going to change how we do business and how life goes on. And it, in fact, did. In many ways, completely different than we anticipated, and in many ways, exactly as we did anticipate. So these future problems, how are you going to incorporate this in incoming technology and stay future-proof? Any questions on problems? So think about what you have in your slide deck now. If all you're talking about are today's tactical problems, people don't like to stand in line, the market's fragmented, I've got to go to 14 apps in order to get the one thing I want to do. Those problems should be easily and readily solvable in future generations.
Can you go over strategic problems?
Absolutely. So again, the strategic problem. So using the example, so let's say, for example, I'll use AI as an example. If you just convinced me that the future workflow and business process is going to be AI, and you showed me in statistics that validate why, if you're stamping a piece of paper and signing a document, AI is going to replace you. If you convince me that this market's coming, and it is coming. So now the strategic problem you'd have to solve would have to be something along the lines of taking random data and synthesizing that and taking action. Fair enough? Because if you're an AI solution and you're not taking action, then you're today's SaaS model who just gave me data that I can analyze and make a decision. Did that make sense? So let's say if I'm in the healthcare industry and I'm claiming to have a solution for cancer, and I give you a statistic that shows that cancer is a gazillion-dollar industry, and my strategic problem is, in order to capture that opportunity, we have to have a solution that cures cancer. And I look at that and go, wow, if you can do that, we can make money. Now you're going to give me the tactical problems and tomorrow's problems that have to be solved in order to achieve the strategic problem. And technically, generally those problems will fall under one, the technology. There's a technology that allows it to happen. There is something else, though that's a biggie. There's future technology and stuff that's coming. And then there's just changes in the dynamics. So if we take a look at these problems, then you don't need 10 or 15 problems. You need 3 problems: a strategic problem, whatever technology you got to fix, and whatever other problem happens to fit in there. 3 is generally plenty, and you can cover the gambit. Most startups are better, faster, cheaper. So everything you have should have metrics to it. You should be able to say, today it's 10. Tomorrow it has to be 1. Or today it's 1, tomorrow it has to be 10. This doesn't necessarily mean that's what your product does, but in order to solve today's problems, you have metrics. Very few startups are disruptive with no statistical metrics. Most of you will have a metric that's going on today, because most of the time we can do today what you are trying to do in the future. We just can't do it maybe as effectively, efficiently, or the way you're going to do it in the future, but it can be done today. So that is critical here. Choose the right problems, identify metrics to back that up, and then just identify what the solution has to be to get there. Any questions on that?
Can you give some example for the tactic program regarding to the cancer example that you gave before?
Sure. So the tactical problems, those would obviously all be medical issues. One, not being a doctor, but generally it comes through my experience in like 3 key areas. 1, delivery. I'll call it capability, or the ability to do what it's doing. and then maybe side effects. I'm just pulling a couple things out. Let's say those are the problems today. Delivery is complicated. It may or may not work, and the side effects are terrible. So the solution has to be effective delivery. It has to, work better, and it has to have no side effects. Okay, let's say, for example, those were the tactical problems you were trying to solve. Does that make sense? They tend to be the problems specifically associated with customers or users of your product. And inherently, those are the problems you're trying to solve today, because those are the problems that need to be solved in the future generation of what's going on. Hopefully that answered your question. Anybody else have a question? Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I
Yeah, tactical.
have,
Go ahead.
I have something.
Yeah.
What I want you to go back over, because I'm thinking of it totally different. When you talk about metrics and statistics, when I'm thinking about metrics, I automatically start thinking about pilot testing and KPIs and things like that. And statistics, I'm thinking about, the actual market that I'm going to, and what's happening in that market, and why I think, my solution is the greatest thing since apple pie. So can you go back over metrics and statistics?
Yeah, let's talk about that. And you actually hit on something kind of important. So problems and opportunity are connected. Fair enough.
Okay.
If there's a problem, then it could be argued it's an opportunity, correct? So problem and opportunity being as similar as they are, what I would recommend is when you're thinking in the term of an opportunity and a problem, put them where they have the most impact. And I'm going to give you an example kind of in the healthcare arena that becomes black and white on what I mean. Sometimes it's not obvious. Is it a better problem or is it a better opportunity? But here's an example that kind of lays out what I mean. So a big push right now in healthcare is mental health care. Though it started from blowing up in that arena because of COVID and just everything that's going on right now. So mental health is big. Now, one of the statistics that's frequently used is teen and young adult suicide. Now, most people would probably consider it politically incorrect to put that statistic on the opportunity page. Oh, here's an opportunity. Teen and adult suicides are skyrocketing. It's created an opportunity. Let's get healthcare. That would be politically incorrect. However, it's a totally fine metric to say, teen and early adult suicides are increasing X. So that becomes a problem. So think about problems and solutions and where they have the most impact. So that's one thing to think about in that arena. Now, as far as driving that down to what are the metrics that go along with it, metrics that drive the opportunity, growth, metrics that KPIs. A lot of times KPIs tend to be sometimes more on an operational metric. We've achieved these goals, we've achieved these operational things. Operation metrics tend to be focused around growth, usage, demand, trends, those kind of things. When we get down to metrics and things like you're talking about in the area of problems, then those are metrics you want to show that directly relate to the solution you're going at. Again, it's up to you to pick the right problems because you're trying to get a message across and get a thread going. What you're going to hear as we go through this today is I have a vision. And because of that, I see an opportunity. And because of that opportunity, here's the problems we must solve in order to capture that opportunity. And then that starts bringing us in. So there's a thread. Again, it's all focused on how you see the future. Kind of a long-winded way. Hopefully I answered your question in there.
Yeah, I'm clear because you definitely gave me clarity about my opportunity, because I'm focusing my opportunity right now on the long-term care market.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at, by 2030, the baby boomer population is going to be estimated at 73 million, and which is estimated at 73 million. It's going to reach the age of 65, and there's a 70% chance that people turning 65 will need long-term care.
Okay, and now another trend that's happening in your space that you're talking
Mhm.
long-term care,
Mhm.
one of the things is the fact that an area that's growing dramatically is
Mhm.
home care,
Mhm.
because the technology that was currently only in the hospitals is now coming out with at prices that you can go down to Rite Aid or CVS or any of these and rent the equipment and bring it home. And so those are the kind of things where we're talking opportunity. Okay, we're talking long-term, and we believe that long-term care is going to happen in the home more than it's going to happen in other areas or vice and so forth. And then this defines your vision, where the opportunity is and why you're doing what you're doing. If
Okay.
that fits in your model, I'm just sort of throwing that out there.
Yes, it does, because I'm looking at that that vertical under long-term care, because I'm looking
Mhm.
at skilled nursing facilities, I'm looking at home care, I'm looking at assisted living
Mhm.
facilities. So I'm working on that right now, and
Okay,
I'm
and
ready to
it's all
start
coming
pilot
for the
testing.
home. It's all coming. I've actually
Yeah.
seen startups that are building ecosystems for elderly that can't get up and move on their time. They can wear this and walk around the house and walk down to the store and
Yeah,
carry things home. So there's
you're
a
right.
variety. There, the gambit is all as everywhere.
Yeah, because home care is the biggest sector in long-term care. There's like 4.5 million right
Sure,
now.
sure, it's huge. There's a lot of startups. That's going to blow up. It's going to be amazing. People are going to have many hospitals in their house now, and half of them will be wearables
Yeah.
anyway. So now to
Okay,
close
thank
up
you.
real quick on problem, unless somebody has any questions, if you really want to get funded, solve the investors' problems. When you're done with your pitch, I should be looking at you going, wow, you've got the highest return on investment in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of risk of any of the companies that's come in my office in the last 30 days. You will probably get the check, assuming what you're doing is legal. Because again, it's not about the products, it's not about this, it's about, we want our money. Highest return, shortest amount of time, lowest risk. If you're that, we're in. So now with that, so does anybody else have any questions on solutions and problems? Again, the solution is not your product necessarily. It is what has to happen in the future in order to address the problem. Now, as a pitch deck, this can actually be a pretty good pitch deck too, where it says, here's the problems and here's what has to happen in order to fix those problems, in our opinion. Which then brings us to the product. What is it? What does it do? How does it do it? And why is it important? So let's run through an exercise if we can get a couple people to do this. This is the classic. What is your problem and how do you explain it so that grandma understands it? So who wants to try to answer these 4 questions for me? Now, in some cases, what it is and what it does are obviously by what it is. So you may not need a what does it do, but you may need all 4. Who wants to try this? Oh, don't be shy. You're going to have to do it in front of an investor at some point.
Let's try.
Go ahead.
Hi, so my name is Mirav. I'm from Israel. I'm the founder of My Benefit. My Benefits is a loyalty program that helps small businesses to
No, okay. So let's just start with what is it? It's a loyalty program, huh?
Yes, a
Okay,
loyalty
simple.
program
Okay, it's a
that
loyalty program.
yes,
What does it do?
It's help SMBs, which are small businesses especially, to decrease churn rate of the customer and to extend the loyalty customer base. Actually, it's 2, but
Okay, so I like the idea.
The main thing is churn rate, to decrease churn rate.
Okay, let's leave it with that. Let's leave it at that. Again, this is simple. You don't want them to be a paragraph. It's one sentence that grandma can understand.
And how does it do it? It's a central platform. So it's already built. It's
no, how does it do it? Not that it's built. How does it do it? What is the it? How does it do it?
It's created a loyalty club for each business as a central platform, and it's enable to business to offer a very special.
How does it do it?
How does it do it? Because it's a central platform, so there is a lot of
that's a SaaS model. SaaS model was 10 years ago.
It's an AI, AI.
Oh, that's on everything that's being built.
Yes.
What is it?
And
How does it do it? Does it gather specific data? Does
a
it connect
it's a
certain
gift loyalty
things?
program. It's creates in a few seconds a loyalty program for each business, and it's enable business to offer a loyalty program like the big enterprise.
Okay, hold on, time out, time out. Okay, so your homework is to simply give me one sentence how it does. So let me give you a quick example of how this goes. This is probably one of the hardest parts for most startups, and that's why you spend 9 out of your 10 pages on your product, because it takes you so long to explain what it is. So here's an example. So we just got done talking about the future of transportation, and I want to tell you about our product now and how it solves the problems we just talked about. What is it? It's a bicycle. What does it do? As you'd expect, it moves you from point A to point B. How does it do it? It does it with human power. Why is that important? Because it requires no outside energy source and will always be the most efficient form of transportation, period. Okay, now I may have heard of a bicycle, but you'll notice nowhere in there did I talk about shifting gears, brakes, carbon fiber, spokes, tires, gears. I didn't talk about any of that kind of stuff. I simply gave you what it was, and if you were in the transportation area or understood it or heard of it, you'll go, oh, that sounded compelling. The most important, most efficient form of transportation. I'm interested. Can we have a meeting tomorrow? And then when we come back tomorrow, I'll bring as an investor, I'll bring somebody who knows bicycles inside and out. And then you two can sit down and talk about the technology till you're blue in the face. I may not have that knowledge as the investor. Does that make sense? So that's what you want to be able to do with your product. This is what it is. This is what it does. This is how it does it. And this is why it's important. If I'm an investor and I understand your market space and I understood that, or I understood, healthcare and things like that in more detail, then I will ask you the questions necessary to deal that. That way you're not getting wrapped up around the axle around it. Okay, so what does it do? Let's go back to how it does it. And why is this important? Let's go there first, and you can work on your how does it do it. Why is it important for your loyalty program?
It's important because it enables a business to decrease churn rate like the big enterprise can do, something that they don't have today. And of course, it's raise them revenue. It helps them to raise revenue, of course.
Okay, well, raising revenue is important, and churn rate is important. Unless I'm bringing enough foot traffic in that my churn rate is fine. So these kind of things. But so think about that and think through that a little better. Go ahead.
Because investing in an existing customer is less than to acquire a new one. So if you invest, if you invest 1% in existing customer, it decrease your churn rate.
Oh, okay, understood. Loyalty programs were the whole purpose of loyalty programs was to create loyal customers.
Yeah.
So again, just think about that in simple terms. This isn't extremely difficult for most entrepreneurs to break it down into this simple context. But you'll find that this will help a lot if you can do that. Anybody else want to give it a quick try? How are we doing on time?
We're
getting pretty close at the end. Go ahead.
I'll try. What is it? Is a healthcare tech solution that connects families with loved ones in long-term care settings by allowing healthcare providers to easily and efficiently communicate.
So you've given me what it is, what it does, and how it does it to a certain degree in one sentence. So what is it? Is it a communication tool? Is it a messaging tool?
It's a communication tool.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And it connects families with loved ones in long-term care settings by allowing healthcare providers to easily and efficiently communicate.
Okay, so how does it do it? Is there anything special about it? Do I get it through mental waves? Does it connect and run through my healthcare app that I'm working?
It's an actual app, so you'll get it from whatever endpoint device you're using.
Okay, so think about that, and why. So why is it important?
It's important because healthcare staff are overwhelmed with inquiries from family members, and plus the healthcare industry has a shortage of staff. And
Okay, okay. So those are starting to come into that. So that can drive, you know, again, up to this point, you've laid out what it is and that there's a future shortage and stuff. So that works. Try to bring it down a little closer to what it is, what kind of communication, because communication tools are going to be, are coming out quite, again, this is another area that's important. Everybody's going to have a little kiosk in their office that, you know, you touch a button, it connects straight to your hospital if you're, you know, if you're under any kind of care and these kind of things. But so, okay, well, I'm going to move on a little bit, but thanks for participating on that. But think about that a little bit, how to get really a real sense of clarity so that when you're done, there should be something compelling about it. You know, I mean, that would be why we're here. Now, the next shoe to fall in this area is what is your product? And now why you? So let's say, for example, I've got 8 people in my office that are all selling the same thing that you are, or similar enough that you're in the same bucket. But why you? So you all, let's say your products are equal. Now we're looking at things like, do you have patents awarded? You know, are they patents pending? Do you have a unique business model? Let's say Uber or Airbnb. Are you taking things that couldn't be done because it was in an old school, here's a credit card, you pay it, but now you've got a business model that's novel. Is there a methodology in your algorithms or an approach of which you think you're doing? I was working with a company years ago where everybody in the industry took a left. And this one person who was not school educated, didn't know any better, they took a right and ended up solving the problem because they didn't know any better, and the rest of the industry went in another method. Another one might be who you are. Do you have somebody on your team, or do you have a team that's uniquely together has the ability to absolutely capture and get into this? And another key area, do you have any partnerships that might be an unfair advantage or something like that? So this becomes the product. Okay, so now up to this point, we've identified I have a vision, I see an opportunity, here are the problems that need to be solved, here's the product we have, which coincidentally does all those kind of things, and here's why you want to invest in us. Okay, any questions up to here? This brings us to fundamentally the last piece of the puzzle to conceptualizing an idea. Okay, we have a vision, we've solved the problems, we know what the opportunity is, and now how do we fit in the competitive landscape? Not is our product better. So your vision, and this is where your vision comes to rest. This is what your vision defines everything up to this point and why you're doing what you're doing. Now, when we're talking about competitive environment today and landscape, we're talking about business positioning, not is your product better. Keep in mind, in the first pitch, as we're trying to pitch to investors or explain what we're doing, we're not talking to a customer. So we're not saying that my product's better and here's all of our features. What we want to know is how do we position ourselves within the sandbox so that we can be successful? Not my product's necessarily better. So everybody has that spreadsheet that says, here's the key features, here's our key competitors, and we have all the yeses and they don't, or we have all the X's and they don't. That is an important chart. It's critical internally to ensure that you're building a better product than the customer. The last thing you want to do is come up with a product 18 months from now that's marginally better than what we have today. So you want to make sure that your product has all the right things and is doing all this stuff. On our second meeting, after we get past the initial meeting and we say, hey, I love what you folks are doing, why don't you come on back? We'd like to meet your team and talk more about your product. Now you're going to come back. Like I said, we're probably going to have a subject matter expert in your space that knows your competitors, has used them, whatever the case may be. And then that product discussion is going to happen. So today, instead of showing all the features you have and why you're better, think about presenting yourself in this manner, more of a historical value. You have 3 market segments. You have the incumbents. They've been doing it forever. Everybody knows who they are. They're, they're GE or they're Google or they're whoever. They've been around forever. Everybody knows who they are. In many cases, your incumbents, there may be so many incumbents that you can't even list all of them. Now what you really have is a technology maybe. Maybe the current technology that everybody's using is something like Microsoft Excel spreadsheets, because they never made the transition to SaaS models or online services or any of these kind of things. So the incumbents are the dinosaurs in your area that have been doing it forever. The second group of people, think about them, are the new kids on the block. They're the company who's been out the last 3 to 5 to 7 years that probably took what the incumbents are doing and they turned it into a SaaS model. They put it online. Now, the real important ones are the next gen companies like you that are in a meeting like this that are all going to be coming out your door in 18 months from now with all these similar kind of products, which all of you are telling us that nobody's doing what I'm doing today. But as an investor, we see companies all day. So never say nobody's doing it. You can say that you're unaware of people doing what you do, which is very likely. Because if you're not an investor, these people aren't out advertising yet. So you're probably not going to go who they are. So with that said, we're going to take a look at a quad chart. And we'll talk about how to do this. Again, you're going to start with your story. As we said, we believe the future is going to be faster and actionable. It's going to create action. That means the opposite of faster is slower. The opposite of action is data. So faster is 100%. We can define faster however we want, because that's faster is our 100%, slower is 0. We can define action or actionable any way we want. That's 100%. We can define the other end as 0. So it always goes from 0 to 100, okay? So we believe the future is going to be faster and actionable. So let's take a look at the 800-pound gorillas in our space right now. We have companies like these right here. They've been doing this forever. All they do is they generate data, and they do not do it at the speed that the future is going to demand. And in most cases, they have no ability to even get there. Then we have the new kids on the block, which started moving towards the SaaS models and online, and they started getting to where they could take more than just data and they could actually make preconceived decisions with that. They're slightly actionable, but not where the future is going. We also know some that are going purely on a speed aspect, but we can see a very distinct diversion between the way the SaaS models approach the current solution. Now, we only know of one company that's like us, and they're purely going towards actionable. They're not worried about faster because they're in the healthcare industry, and the action they take has to be 100% right. It doesn't have to be fast. So that's the only company. Again, you may not know anyone here. And by the way, and so this is us. We believe that if you're not moving into this quadrant, you're wrong. Okay, that has a lot more impact and a lot more global discussion than our product has all the features that our customers do, and we're better than they are. Any questions on that? If you do this, you can actually see it. All you're saying is, here it is today. This is where it's been forever. This is where it went. Some folks are doing this, and we're going here. And if you're not headed in that direction, we believe you're wrong. Any questions on that? That has a lot more power than our product's better. Now, if somebody wants to sit down and do a breakdown on your product, it's a great reason to say, well, perfect. How about tomorrow at 1? Yeah, who is that?
Hey, it's Hugh. So
Yeah.
if you have questions, feel free to leave them in the chat as well, and then we could read them off to Gary at the end. So if you don't want to ask, just write them and I'll read them off.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
This is Sanjeev here. I got a quick question. Can you elaborate more on the action and data? Is the action more of what action I'm taking today to be successful tomorrow?
No. This is purely an example. I'm assuming that this is an AI platform. And if you're an AI platform, the end result would be action. If you're a SaaS model today or an incumbent, odds are all your system does is generate data or a report or something that you have to take. So purely an action. These were purely for an example.
Okay, that makes sense. So based upon the product and business, these things will change, data points.
Correct. These data points will change, and they should be in your vision. This is your vision. You're already telling me that the future is going to be this. Therefore, if you're not moving into this upper quadrant right here, we believe you're headed the wrong way. And everybody's betting on that. They're not betting that your product's better. They're betting that your approach along with your product and your team and what's going on, the way trends are going, that you're headed in the right direction. Because none of us know if your product's any better, because none of us have seen all the products on the market. And the best product rarely wins.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Sure, not a problem. Any other questions? All right. So once you've done that, so that is conceptualizing your idea. I see a future. I know what it looks like. I have an I know what the opportunity looks like. I know what I have to do to capture that opportunity. We know what that has to be. We have a product that does that. Here's why it's going to be doing this in 2 years. Here's why we're the right people to be doing this with. And here's how we're going to fit in the sandbox. Then the next logical step would be, once you understand that, now you have to do a strategic plan. And like I talked earlier, think about that in 3 terms. Preparation. What have you done? You know, what have you done to this date to do this? We started here. Here's our date. Let's call that June of 2022. Everything's done in here, and we spent this amount. We need to go get some funding for this. We're going to accomplish all of these things. This is what the VC round's probably going to look like. And we're going to scale and do these things. And we're looking at an exit somewhere around here. Oops, sorry about that. Hit my buttons. Okay. Now, in the big scheme of things, you're expected to pay for the phase 1. Angels will generally pay for phase 2, and VCs will normally pay for phase 3, milestone 3. Now, you can also change that to do no VC rounds. If you're out on ScaleupStream where we are right now, ScaleupStream was built on a model of allowing early angel investors to come in and do 1 or 2 rounds of notes, maybe 3 rounds of notes, and not get VC funding. The angel investors are happy, and then he'll be lined up and set up to be acquired by his corporation. That allows an investor to get in and out in anywhere from 2 to 5 years, rather than get wrapped up in a VC round and an IPO round and being in that investment for 12 years. So there's a lot of things that are changing again in the startup world and where it's going. So again, this then becomes your equipped plan. I can see what you did in business development. Oh, we talked to some people, did some interviews, then we built an MVP based on that. And we have all the people we need in operations. I can see that business development is going to go from here to what you expect to do with my money and what you're going to accomplish, which will lead you to this. Here's the product today. Here's what you're going to do with our money. Here's what you're going to do next. You smell like a company. You're probably going to add your business team here, maybe get an office, and here you're going to grow into your thing. So that's a simple way to think about how to lay out a plan once you've conceptualized it. And then it could look something, like this. We had 50 users, 5,000 interviews, 3 years worth of research. We built the MVP. It's an app. It's not web-based. We've got a patent coming. We have an executive team, a development team. We have planned financials. We smell like a company. We look like a company. And we spent $25K. And we're looking for 1.3 million to take us to this revenue, these early adopters, these partners, finalize the platform, train it, and we're going to scale, scale, scale. So that's kind of what that looks like. So there's your completed. This is what you've done. This is what you're looking, and this is what you're going. And we can now look at that, say somewhere around July of 24 or so, we could be looking at possibly an exit. And here's a final product with real numbers on it, just for reference. And that brings us pretty much to an end for today. Most of this is around conceptualizing, but once you have a concept of what you think you're going to do, what it looks like, where it's going, then the next step is to create a plan.